Okay, we are rolling. Okay, welcome everybody to our last AIARE continuing education event of the 25-26 season. I'm really excited you're all here. This is a topic that we have had requested numerous times over the last few seasons, so I'm really excited that we're actually going to be able to pull it off this year. As you know, the recordings from all of our previous CE webinars are available on our YouTube channel, and there will be some other stuff. We have some public-facing webinars with our corporate sponsors this season, and those will also be posted on our YouTube channel. For our last CE of the season, I think we saved the best for last this year, although we had a really stellar lineup. But tonight's topic, as you probably saw, is what your splitboarding students wish their skiing instructors knew. Again, this is something we've had requested a lot, and I'm so honored to introduce our two speakers for tonight's event. We have Devin gone. Devin and I were lucky enough to take our Pro 1 together at Mount Baker, and it was an awesome experience. And man, what could be a kind of stressful experience was really made more fun and pleasant by having Devin on the course. Man, her sense of humor and like lots of good jokes, but also taking the subject matter really seriously. It was really an awesome role model. And then Devin since has gone on to take her Pro 1 or her instructor training course and is now an AIARE splitboarding instructor. Speaking of splitboarding instructors, you all know Sarah McGregor because she's our member services manager, and you probably interacted with her in that sense. But you might not know that Sarah is also an AIARE course leader and are you the country's first female splitboard guide, Sarah?
Me and one other woman 2 years ago became the country's first woman to become a certified splitboard guide.
So badass. We're so lucky to have Sarah on staff and really excited to have her and Devin here to show you the ropes, some of the stuff that your own splitboarding students in those mixed travel mode courses probably wish you knew. One other shameless plug that I'm just going to drop is our very own Sarah Mack just came out with a film that she's been working on for a long time. It's called Imposters, and if you haven't seen it yet, I would encourage you to do so. Sarah, maybe you could drop a link in the chat so folks can see this really awesome film that you and your friends have been working on for the last couple years. With that, I'm going to let our two celebrities take it away and teach us a little bit about what our splitboarding students are hoping that we will pick up and teach them in the skin track.
Amazing. That was such a warm welcome. I wasn't even gonna try to sing any of my own accolades. Great. Do you want me to take over screen share, Emma, or should...
Yep, that's great. I'm just going to stop sharing now. And folks, feel free to turn your camera on if you want to engage with folks. You're also welcome to turn the camera off if that's easier for you to save bandwidth. And I'll just ask that folks mute unless you're speaking so that we can make sure we don't get any background noise. You may have heard a few minutes ago, I have a really cute toddler running around in the background who is great but doesn't have a lot to add to this conversation. So I'm going to stay muted as well. We'll ask that folks do the same when until it's time for questions at the end. I'll be monitoring the chat, so if folks have questions, feel free to drop them in there and we'll see if there's a good time. And Devin and Sarah, take it away.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Can y'all confirm that you are looking at my webinars being recorded screen right now?
Yep.
Okay, awesome. So yeah, this webinar is being recorded. So if you choose to keep your video on or if you choose to unmute, then it will be recorded for everyone to view in the recording afterward. Um, so yeah, let's get it a little bit started. So on my social account, I went ahead and asked my followers, anyone who is a splitboarder, when you were a beginner, what did you wish your guide or adding instructor on skis would have done or taught better to support your success? So we're just going to start right out of the gate from some answers from some of the people. One thing that came up quite a bit was the jokes and comments aren't actually that helpful or aren't actually that cool. I can joke along with the best of them, but what I've realized is that when you're that young in your, backcountry career, it can be more distracting than helpful, to be made to feel like you don't belong or that your mode of travel is inferior. So that was really interesting to kind of hear confirmed from some of the folks replying to this question. They wish that their instructors brought awareness to the differences in their mode of travel. I think it can be just really validating for them to understand the differences that might benefit them more in tour planning, skinning, managing flats, and where to stop, if for nothing else, to help them feel like they're not broken. Um, so yeah, just kind of bringing awareness to that. They said that they wish that they got more kind of front-loaded communication on upcoming flats and uphill sections because it is important to keep your speed sometimes. And the last one I think really hit it home. Don't make us feel inconvenient to the group. And luckily, there's a lot of things that we can do to help everybody feel welcome. Our number one goal is to facilitate a positive learning environment. And oftentimes, these people on your courses, you might be their very first introduction to a backcountry community. And so it's really important that we take that seriously. Excuse me, I'm just gonna try to get my notes here. Okay. Confirm you cannot see my notes right now. No?
Confirmed. No notes.
Okay, good. Thank you all. New to Zoom apparently. So, there are some obvious differences between a splitboard and skis, and we definitely want to bring that to your attention. And y'all are probably already aware of a lot of them. But I think it's really also important to recognize that there's a big difference in the presence of splitboard mentorship and just a general awareness and understanding of how the tool can be used at a level where it actually becomes a really effective mode of travel. So like I said, y'all are often people's first experience in the backcountry. And we need to take this positive learning environment and apply it to make our folks feel supported in their choice of mode of travel. And we really don't want them to leave feeling like they don't belong or that their mode of travel is an inferior. And it can be really distracting. The point and the goal of the course is to avoid avalanches and to come away feeling empowered with knowledge. And it's not to feel disempowered because of their mode of travel choice. So to get started, we're just going to pass it to Devin. We're going to talk about the anatomy of a splitboard and how it might different. And like I said, just having awareness and being able to share that awareness with your students can bring a lot of validation on what these differences can be. So,
You want me to take over sharing?
yeah, sure.
It's great to see some familiar faces here tonight. Thanks everyone for joining. Let's see. Okay. Uh-oh. Escape, escape. Oh God. It's like 5 years since COVID started, and I think we're all going to be forever new to Zoom. I would never become good at it. Not sure it's a skill I want. Is this the thing?
Yep, next slide is yours.
Okay, here we go. Wow. Okay. Okay, I get the super fun topic of talking about gear. And I'm like, if you're looking at the video, you're only seeing like my mouth is because I'm set up to do a little demo. But we'll get to the demo here in a second. We'll kind of talk through high level what's going on with a split porter, right? So boots. Everybody wears a pair of boots, but snowboard boots are different than ski boots, right? And we split them into the backcountry world. We split them into soft boots and hard boots category. And I'll show you those. When we say soft boots, we just mean like your typical snowboarding boots that you see 99.9% of people wear in the resort, right? Most people, especially when they're starting out in the backcountry, they're just using the same exact boot that they've been riding in the resort with. These are very comfortable. They have a range and flex, but are all meant to fit the riding techniques of a snowboard. So versus a ski, right? So it's much less stiff front and back and laterally. Um, and that really, the impact there impacts uphill, right? It's great for downhill, but it is there are downsides to it when it comes to going uphill. The biggest issue with that increased flexibility is when you're going uphill, for instance, side hilling, we just don't have as much lateral stiffness in those soft boots. So it makes engaging your edges and edging in especially icy side hills much more difficult. We also don't have a walk mode. There's no walk mode there are like some touring soft boots have something that is like a walk mode, but it really still does not create that range of motion that even in the burliest ski touring boot you get, right? So that range of motion also, the limited range of motion also creates situations, for instance, like splitboarders typically just need to get onto their heel risers sooner than a skier might. Splitboard. So splitboard, when it's in downhill mode, it's just like a regular snowboard. And just like a regular snowboard, there are screws everywhere. And on a splitboard, there are more screws than ever seen before. And especially when we get into spring, that spring snow just seemed to do a great job of unwinding every single screw. So that's like a general in resort, out of resort, in the backcountry, like pre-check for all your boarders to do is to check all their screws across the bindings and their boards, make sure that they're tight. I have this written here, kind of tongue in cheek. Are they in fact better than skis? Because I think a lot of people say, like, skis are the superior tool for backcountry. And I think skis have a lot of advantages. I don't think that I don't feel like either is necessarily better or worse. There are moments where I know I ski and I splitboard, and I know there are moments when I rather be on a board versus rather be in a ski. But the big advantage or the big disadvantage with boards, again, comes to the uphill, right? When you split a board in half, you end up somewhat compromised. The main thing is that with a board, they're as stiff, usually a lot of times as stiff as a pair of skis when they're in snowboard form. When they're in touring mode and ski mode, and you break them in half, they're often much softer. And also that they're much wider, right? They're like, imagine skiing on like 140s. How hard would that be to set an edge if you've got a pair of like 135, 140 skis on? And then on top of that, they're super soft. The metaphor I like to tell is a spoon versus a knife, right? Imagine trying to you take this knife up against a block of butter and trying to like cut into it and like set that edge versus if you're trying to use a spoon, your spoon just washes it right out, right? That's that lack of stiffness. Because when you step onto a ski and it bends, it essentially creates a spoon shape, and that shape and the lack of stiffness there is what contributes to a lot more blown out skin tracks than you would see on a ski. Multi-tools. I think, especially as instructors and guides, we always carry a pretty robust repair kit and one of those pieces is a multi-tool and scraper. For splitboarders, and I would encourage y'all as instructors and for you to encourage all of your splitboard students to carry some sort of multi-tool on an outside pocket. And the reason being that like I said, screws do come loose, right? And being able to make a quick adjustment without having to dig into your bag have everyone like stop for you to, or your student to dig into their bag, pull out their repair kit, find that screwdriver, and just to like reset one or two screws. If you just keep it on an outside pocket, that would save you like 20 minutes of time. Uh, so that's just like a quick pro tip. And then a scraper, I don't have it directly on me. The scraper that I keep is that like MSR uh, backpacking pot cleaner. It has like a little brush and it has like a flat, hard edge. Um, it's good for scraping off ice buildup on bases. We have a lot of, you'll see in a second, there's a lot of tight fits and nooks and cranny where ice can build up. So having a scraper can be really helpful to just clear your board off of all the like random pieces of snow and ice that gets attached to it. That is going to impact your ability to transition. Okay, I'm gonna get off of demo for a second. Can y'all see me? Okay. Boots. We'll go back to boots real quick. Hard boots, just like a really soft ski boot. This is the hard boot I use. Really proud of it because it's actually a kid's ski boot, which makes a perfect flex for an adult snowboarder. Um, you all notice plenty of ROM, right? Versus and a nice lateral stiffness versus a soft boot, which is much softer. And this is a medium stiff boot, right? It just it's a great tool for snowboarding, less great for uphill skin tracks. As far as your board goes, we'll just kind of go over all the parts. So this is your typical split board in the form that everyone's familiar with, a snowboard. We have the bindings. These are sparks. You'll most likely either see this brand or another brand called Karakorum. I encourage y'all to talk to your splitboard friends or go into a local shop to really get your hands on both types, so you're familiar with them. They're more or less the same, but they each have a little bit of nuance to them. When we're in snowboard move and we want to transition, we're pulling these things off, and they do get tight. And I'm demonstrating this to tell you that sometimes when it comes to transitioning on a split board, finesse isn't always the name of the game. Split board bindings, or snowboard bindings, you see how this is the left foot. You see how the buckles are all, the side of the buckle should correspond with the side of your foot, right? So this is the left one. This is the right one. All of them work that way, and all of them have some sort of walk versus ride mode. So this is the ride mode, and then you want to flip this up, and it leans further back, so you have a little bit more range of motion for going uphill. I remember one of the first tours I did like 800 meters in uphill mode, essentially with forward lean set going 800 meters all day. My legs were absolutely dead. And it was probably mostly attributed to misuse of equipment. So like getting off on the skin track that first day, I, as an instructor who usually run this tail guide, I'm just looking at people's feet, right? I'm checking for skiers to see if their boots are in walk mode. I'm looking at split boarders to see if the binding is on the right foot, and two, if their binding is in uphill mode. Your snowboard has a bunch of stuff, and you see like there are screws here, there's screws here. Like if these screws come off and you lose one of these pieces, you can't really replace these things in the field, right? It's pretty much a turn around, go home type of situation. This is why I harp on making sure screws are in tight. In the front and back, there's always 2 sets of clips. This is what holds the board together. So if we want to split this in half, like there are always different mechanisms. This one just slides in and out. Some of them have ratchets. And you might just need to like tap it hard to get them to come apart. So here's the first tricky thing that you'll probably see at some point. This is how a snowboard goes together, right? But when we go uphill, they go like this. So it goes opposite when you're going uphill. So this is the uphill. Now this is the left-hand ski. And we're putting this binding on. For touring uphill, okay? You also have heel risers, and I will also tell you that these things get iced up no matter which brand your client's on. Icing is kind of name of the game, right? Like everything has small little like channels. These clips are small channels. These boards have to fit together perfectly, edge to edge. So if there's any type of ice buildup along this edge, they're not going to go back together. So the name of the game of boards is clear everything. If you see a student who is having a hard time transitioning and getting their boards back together, like my first thought is there's ice buildup on the board, and I'm going to take that thing apart and help them clear that off completely before I put it back in. So putting the board back together, here's the other thing that people like to do. They like to set their boards on the snow and then try to do this. That doesn't work. We want to encourage them to hold the boards up and actually create this V shape and put the edges together. Can you see it? Like this. And then rotate them in and slam it shut. I love the term tools, not jewels, right? People love to be really finessing with their ski and snowboard gear. But in this case, if we really want to transition and get ice and snow cleared off, we have to treat these things like the tool that they are and get that ice cleared off in order for us to put that board back together. I'm not going to spend much time on skins. I am going through. I'm trying not to get sucked into the gear rabbit hole, but I'll just show you one nuanced thing that might be different. That can be different. Some split boards require or have skins that are cut for each side of the board, while some are same, just like skis, right? Skis interchangeable, doesn't matter which skin goes to which side. But with split boards, especially like more dramatically different shaped ones, you have one skin that is dedicated to one side. I encourage all my students to do this, is to just marker which side. I do this particular pattern because it matches the board, right? So now I know exactly which side of the board this skin goes on. And I do the tail as well, so I don't mistake it. And then I just encourage them to mark the center line. I just do it with a Sharpie. It will eventually wear out. It doesn't impact the usability of the skins at all, but it is a good, easy, quick reference. And that middle line is very useful when you start talking about trying to fold your skins while they're still semi-attached to your ski or board. Multi-tools. Most split board bindings will actually come with one. There are so many different versions. But like the key thing is make sure your students have ones with bits that actually fit all the parts of their binding, and each one might be different. What am I missing in terms of gear? I think that's pretty good. Do we have some questions in chat?
Been
Yeah.
doing a pretty good job keeping up with these.
Okay,
Sarah, do you
cool.
want to just let people know about the kit you put in the chat?
Yeah, totally. So there's a really great question asking if about splitboard screws and bolstering our repair kit, and we added a link to a little kit that Spark makes that they have a range of spare screws, and I highly recommend adding those to your kit. I wouldn't necessarily spend too much time um, with Spark's more bolstered kits, such as the kit that includes an ankle strap and a buckle. And the reason being because those are easier to finagle in the field. Obviously, if you're on an overnight head trip, reconsider. But if it's just like a day trip, like a screw can really bail you out of a failed toe piece because that part is really hard to fix in the field. Whereas an ankle strap, you carry ski straps and you can usually get out of some trouble with that. So yeah, get that kit and we'll include that in a post-event email, a link to that kit as well. Um,
Like, hopefully no one loses all three screws of one of these toe plates, but it can possibly happen. Or even if you lose two of them, you're it's not going to hold in place. Um, you can't replace this, and now you don't really have a great way of. Now you're talking about like improvising ski straps and whatnot. We're on an educational course, right? That's what we're talking. The context we're talking about. Um, if it's like a ski day, go home, get a new part, come back out another day, no problem. But when you're talking about a course and you have a bunch of students, to have one person because of a lost couple of screws needing to force the entire group to turn around and end their day, um, or something like that, that's just pretty terrible experience for everybody. So it's just all like kind of preventative measures.
mhm.
Um, You can also, I'm going to go back to sharing my screen. Sarah, do you want to take over sharing and start at
Yeah.
that kind of recap slide? Um, I've mentioned this before. We'll probably say it a couple more times. Like, if you have a relationship with a local shop, I would highly encourage you going in, one, getting your hands on these things and like trying yourself, learning how to do the transition, seeing the differences between the Spark setup versus the Karakorum setup. Um, and then they might just hook you up with a set of screws. Like I know the shop that I worked in, we would just throw together a few pairs of spare screws for you. You don't necessarily need a full kit. That is the one that Spark makes is very convenient. Um, this is a tip that Sarah had mentioned, is that if you carry also a little bit of steel wool, you can then use that use a smaller screw into a bigger that's supposed to be, you can replace a bigger screw with a smaller screw by putting some steel wool around that smaller screw to fill in the gap. So
Yeah.
just a quick recap about gear. Um, Snags in transition, probably ice and snow. Um, encourage your students to transition at home. Um, make it's like I don't know how many of y'all are doing full full in person versus hybrid. I'm 99% doing hybrid courses. So there's time for people to practice doing a transition while they're in a warm, dry place before they take it out into the field. Um, and a lot of times your folks might be dealing with brand new gear. Like for instance, the board I showed you is my partner's. It's brand new. I just set it up with new bindings and the bindings don't fit onto the pucks. They just like wouldn't go on. So if we had not done, if I hadn't done this here, or your students in that same situation didn't try it at home, they would have gotten to the trailhead, been in uphill mode, no problem, got to the top of wherever you are, do the course, and then when it's time to transition, not be able to put their bindings on to ski down safely. And now you're in that situation. So just getting, especially with new gear, trying it all out, dialing that in somewhat at home can save everyone's day. Once again, screws, check everybody's screws, make sure everybody's in walk mode with your bindings, and carry a multi-tool on the outside pocket. Okay, the last thing I'll say about gear in a Rec 1 is most likely where you're going to have a situation where people are new to the gear and need some help, right? And you're hopefully not seeing hard boots on a Rec 1. I have not seen it. I don't know if Sarah, you've had much more experience than I, if you've ever seen hard boots on a Rec 1. You'll probably start seeing it's more advanced. And so you might start seeing it in a Rec 2. If you teach a lot of Rec 2s, I think the mindset switches from as a ski guide, what do I need to know about split boards? Well, it's not so much how do I teach someone who's new about their gear, who's new to it. It's more, do I know how to make repairs to broken gear while I'm in the field, right? So I think just think about that mindset when you go into a Rec 2 versus a Rec 1 with split boarders.
Totally. Yeah. Thank you so much, Devin. But yeah, key difference is soft boots are harder to skin with. You're fighting against the boot to get ankle range of motion. Soft boards are hard to skin with, and the skis are fatter, the edges are farther away, so it's harder to apply pressure. Yeah, just noticing these differences can really support your ability in bringing awareness to your students and helping them feel more validated. Cool. So yeah, keep the questions coming in the chat. Thank you all so much for those.
I don't know. It's just a powerful thing. It's you strapped down to this piece of fiberglass and you're moving along a flat surface and you really feel connected to MN, Mother Nature, while you're doing that. And that's when you really feel alive.
Did y'all catch that audio? I just want to make sure the audio came through. Okay, cool. So we would be remiss if we didn't talk about snowboarders managing flats, and it's always funny to bring in a little humor. Good old cross-country snowboarder. But yeah, we're just going to move into how we can support our students by choosing the terrain. So the terrain that you choose does matter. And I'm going to do a quick demo on CalTopo, but the rule number 1 is flat, undulating, or terrain that requires a traverse shouldn't be your plan A. And if you do happen upon it, then we'll kind of cover some skills that are really important to managing those flats. But yeah, try not to have that be your plan A. Second rule is do not be afraid to transition. Oftentimes, a better tour plan where everyone has more fun involves just one more transition where you go back uphill and set yourself up for an exit that has more fall line skiing. So it's not like we're just accommodating snowboarders. Everybody has more fun when we just set a little bit different of a tour plan. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about terrain shading here in a second. So let's share a different screen now. Okay. Can y'all see my map?
Yep.
Cool, cool, cool. Okay. Let me try to get more of it. Okay. So, this is Red Mountain Pass. I run a lot of courses out of Southwest Colorado. I'm currently based in Durango. So if you're familiar, this is Silverton, Colorado down here, and this is Red Mountain Pass. And I've spent a lot of time running courses out of the AIARE hut. I'm just going to go ahead and turn off terrain shading. So, like setting a good tour plan for your students, we got to figure out what's flat and what's not, right? So I'm sure a lot of you all are already familiar with slope angle shading, which, and if you're not, it just gives you an idea of the generalized kind of big picture slope angle of an area, but it only goes down to 27 degrees. So it is helpful, right? But it's not so much helpful understanding just how flat the unshaded terrain is, because oftentimes the unshaded terrain or the terrain that falls outside of the slope angle shading layer can still be skiable. And we kind of need to know when we are like planning our exits or planning anything that's not like the main pitch that we're going to ski, we need to know like just how flat is that unshaded terrain. And so I really like to use a custom shaded layer that shows me 20 to 26 degrees, because that gives me a much better idea of like, is it still even skiable for my snowboarders? Will they still be able to move efficiently through this terrain or not? So if you're unfamiliar with setting your own custom shading layers, I'll just like go through that really quick. CalTopo just updated that feature to make it really user friendly. So all of my Zoom features are in the way though. Okay. Add terrain shading, and then you just select slope, title it what you want it to be titled. And I'm going to turn it green down here, and I just want it to be from 20 to 26 degrees. I find that 20 degrees is a pretty good sweet spot. And I'm choosing 26 because that is the angle right below the lowest shading in the native slope angle shading layer. And then if you want, you can turn on a gradient and just make the upper side of that. All of these faces in my way. Ooh, the zoom features are getting me. Okay. Anyway, and then you'd save that. I already have it, but so here it is right here. That's my layer. So that gives me a lot more information, particularly in Colorado when it's a high avalanche danger day. And like I need to be careful even about touching terrain that's shaded yellow. This gives me a lot better of idea of terrain that's going to be more fun for everybody, but less of a chaos kind of yard sale for my snowboarders. So that's a really helpful feature I highly recommend. So now that we've got all of our angles turned on, I'm gonna kind of show you like across the street here from, like behind the AIARE cabin, we can see that there is some terrain that's just still not shaded, even with that custom layer. And so that tells me it's going to be kind of brutal for my snowboarders. It's going to be managing flats. It'll be more brutal if there's fresh snow. If it's like a deep, bottomless snow, like it's way harder to carry your speed, right? It's different though. Like I might feel like this is a more appropriate option if I know that my snow surface is more firm, right? Everybody can carry speed a little bit better there. So it depends on the snow surface, but just looking at this terrain, depending on what the skill set of my riders are, this should not be plan A, right? We're going to have kind of a difficult time. So why don't we choose terrain where we know that we might have a little bit easier of a time moving efficiently with all modes of travel. So we cross the street here. Oftentimes I like to kind of skin up this, and I really like this ridge because I like for my students to start like on one piece of terrain and end on another, because I think it gives them a better, better ability to use or develop the skill set of terrain ID. So let's say, for example, we skin up this and, we ski down this or ski down this or something like that. Well, that would then take us, y'all can see my mouse okay, right? I can draw as well.
Yeah.
So if we, skin up this and then ski down this, we come down here. So now we have a decision to make. Whoa, where are we? We have a decision to make right here where we need to figure out how to get back to the hut. And, oftentimes our skiers, where are my tools? Get rid of oh my goodness. X. Nope. No matter how much I practice with this Zoom thing. Okay, I think I did it. There it is. Okay, so we need to figure out how to get back to our hut. And I think oftentimes you might fall into kind of like maybe a lazier decision to just skerfuffle along the road and manage that flat. But the whole point that I'm trying to get to here is that it doesn't have to be that big of a burden just to add one more transition. Take a skin track up again and set yourself up for just one more descent that'll take you back down to the hut without having to manage flat terrain. So do not be afraid to transition. And I understand that transitions can add a little bit more time to your day. Maybe budget some time. Or if you're running against daylight, like I transition fast and then I clock in. Sometimes I like, help my folks transition just to keep that moving faster. Like I said, I recognize that can suck up a little bit of time, but I still believe that you should not be afraid to transition because the alternative, the element at risk here is your splitboarders' morale. The element at risk is your splitboarders feeling like they're an inconvenience to your group because now, if you've chosen to go this way, your skiers are all the way up ahead because they're way better at skerfuffling. That's the word I made up to call just like walking without skins on. Skiers are more adept at doing that than snowboarders, and it's also extremely athletic. That cross-country snowboarder that we saw in that video is working hard. And when you're setting your students up to not only do these really athletic maneuvers just to manage flat terrain, but now they're also taking up brain space by feeling inferior. Like at that point, they're no longer learning. And that, now we've failed at our goal of teaching them, a good course because all of their brain space is now taken up by becoming athletes and cross-country snowboarders to manage this flat terrain. There are ways to do it. Obviously, you can't win all battles. Sometimes you will have to do that, but it's just important that you do it well. And what that means is just have everybody in the same mode of travel. If skins work better for the snowboarders, make everybody do it because that puts everybody on the same playing field and that sets your snowboarders up so that they don't feel inferior. Like I said, that really disrupts their learning environment. So those are kind of like the big things that I wanted to share regarding setting a good tour plan. Let me come back to my slides here.
On the everyone transition point, I think another point I want to add is a lot of times y'all have been to the venue before, and so where the undulating parts of your exit might be, right? And having pre-planned for y'all to hit a spot and be like, and then you just initiating, hey, we're all gonna this is a transition point, we're all doing it, rather than realizing a split boarder is struggling and then calling an audible to transition. That also helps keep that morale better because it just seems like, oh, that's just part of the plan. We're transitioning versus, oh, the split boarder can't do this, so now we're having to transition again, right? You see how what I'm saying? It's like a different tone.
Mm. I love
Yeah.
that. Yeah. Try to anticipate as much as you can. And just as a rule across all things, front loading expectations solves 99% of problems. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit. But I'm going to give some recommendations to include in your pre-course email here in a little bit. But y'all can see my slides, right? Do you want me to just keep driving, Devin? Or do you want to take over?
No, I think you're doing great.
Okay,
And
great.
the less I talk of being sick, the better.
Oh, okay. Well, I can drive the slides. I know that we discussed that you would take over group management if you'd like.
Oh yeah, I'll talk about this.
Yeah.
So this is just a interactive thing. You know, this is what we do in the day of Zoom, so that it feels like we're talking to humans, Sarah and I, and not just pictures of humans. So a little bit of group management. So you see, we got a team of 3 here. Um, just put into the chat what actually, if you are brave enough, unmute yourself and just call out which letter you think is the best place for the team to stop after this bit of downhill. If you don't want to talk, you can put it in the chat. I see Chris is typing. See? Cool. Wow. Dang. A lot of you all are already ahead of the curve. You must have splitboard friends. Yeah. I think A is a obvious no, right? B seems pretty good, especially if you're all just skis. Like, yeah, you're pretty much over the big hump. You just have to maybe sidestep it a little bit to get to the next down. But if you have a split boarder, B is pretty bad. Um, and I'm sure we have all seen a split boarder in a resort struggle to get to like that through that last part. It's pretty terrible. Um, Sarah, do you want clicking?
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
So
Okay.
maybe it's just getting out of the way and letting that split boarder use your tracks and then go through so that they end up at the front of at the top of the crest so they can easily drop in to the next section from there.
Hmm.
Okay. And then in that case, smiley faces all around. Um, I built this slide with just these like soulless black figures, and then Sarah was like, "Nah, we need smiley faces." Uh,
Teamwork.
okay. So what happens when we have a big group, 6-person team? Um, same question, right? Where are we aiming for? Probably still C, right? That doesn't really change. But what happens is if we just go one at a time in line, you know, especially if this was like a pretend it's not such a massive hill and this was actually downhill skinning. So we're all stuck in our skin track. So when you have a big group, your first person might be in their ideal spot, but the last couple of people might be in a really bad spot because they're stuck at the back of a skin track. So what you could do is like pre-plan for this, encourage your students to and yourself to step out of the way once you're there, and call your splitboard folks down. Oh, and let them. Oh, we had it. There you go. Have them um, get to the front. So this way, potentially, they can still follow a track, right? So they get better glide, and they end up in a better position to get onto the next slope.
Hmm. Nice.
And
So
then
you have
yeah,
the skier went first to put in a track. So if it is deep snow, they do have a better ability to keep their speed and be set up in a good position there. So.
and then yeah. So another method might just be that you go down the slope a little bit and just kind of group manage, right? And you're
Hmm.
communicating to your team about where they should be going.
Yeah, so the the topic is like where should we stop, right? And we need to set our team up for success. So sometimes we stop mid-slope to communicate the plan, just so that from here the snowboarder has a better ability to keep their speed. And this is just better than stopping, say, at the bottom of the slope where now the snowboarder is already in a position where they cannot pick back up their speed. So we oftentimes will stop mid-slope to communicate the plan, put in a track, and now the snowboarder is happy, and then the rest of the team can follow. Yeah. Cool. So terrain choice, kind of what I was just saying. Actually, I was out just this Sunday. This is me riding. Don't be fooled. There were plenty of rocks that we were dodging throughout the day, but this is a little mini golfing session. But you can see the terrain gets flat here. I pick up the track of the person who came in front of me, and I'm able to leapfrog past them to keep my speed. And so that can be like a good tool that you as skiers can use to put in the track, but then still leave space in the good position in front of you so the snowboarder can pass you and be set up for the next pitch without having to skerfuffle or cross-country snowboard. Here's another tool, putting in the track in powder. Let's say that the goal for us is to get to this X so that we can descend on the right side of the screen there. But skiers can often traverse without losing elevation a lot more easily, and no problem. But now that puts the snowboarder in a little bit more challenging position. If they were to traverse, they couldn't use your track to keep speed. They'd have to make their own track, and what that means is they'll lose a little bit more elevation just to put in their own track. So if your goal is to help them stay in a track, you can just step downhill and put in a track a little bit lower with a slightly steeper descent line. It still needs to be steeper for a snowboarder to be able to stay in it, steeper than you might, do on your own. And now everybody's happier. I didn't put smiley faces on these guys yet, but this is can be like a really effective tool to support your student. And I've already said this, just want to reiterate it. Just keep everybody on the same page, manage your group. And if you're choosing that skinning is the best for one member, then just have everybody do it. I know it can get horse to barn at the end of the day where everybody's just kind of doing their own thing, getting back to the car, and it can be challenging to pull in the reins, but those are kind of where morale can really fall apart. So just hold on to those reins, keep people doing the same mode, and that'll help everybody feel like they're a part of the group and that like they belong.
Just to
Um,
add to before we get too far from sorry, Sarah,
yeah, go.
too far from the traversing topic. Um, Traversing is especially on the heel side for snowboarders is a pretty advanced skill. And it's not one that's ever taught. It's kind of like a learn as you do skill, and it's pretty advanced. Don't always expect your splitboarders to be coming in and super capable of doing the same level of traverse line that you or your ski students might be doing. I think I am seeing more and more people head into the backcountry with less resort experience as well. So that means lower baseline skill set. So like just keep that in mind, right? It's you just think about where you're going and whether or not you're setting your like skill assessment is so important. This is one of those reasons. It might seem like a small thing, but it's like if your exit strategy is to do a big traverse, and you can't miss a particular like exit, it might not be the best option for a rec one in terms of your trip planning goes.
Yeah. And I keep coming back to this brain space. Like your bandwidth gets taken up so much faster as a level one student. Um, and so just try to keep that as open as possible by not gassing them out. So you've found yourself in flat terrain despite your best efforts. It happens, and oftentimes it's really just not avoidable. So what are we going to do about it? Um, the age-old topic, do we keep our poles out or do we put them away? And the reason I'm giggling is because I fight with my splitboarder friends about this all the time. It can often be a style thing, and people place judgments on the others who are keeping their poles out, but there can be a reason. The key thing is have a reason. So, reasons to put them away. Anybody feel confident to speak up? What are some reasons to go ahead and put the poles away? All right, fine. You.
I'll play. Maybe it's not an area one, and you're doing some ski mountaineering, and you need to hold on to an ice axe.
Oh, there we go. Okay, I love it. Another reason might be like, okay, keeping your poles in your hand is a new skill. And sometimes snowboarders aren't used to it, right? It is a new skill that requires practice. If you have like a really awesome descent all the way back to the car, and you don't anticipate any skerfuffling or managing of flats, then sure, put them away. That's great. But if you are anticipating flats to manage or little uphill sections or undulations, or if there's deep powder and you're expecting that a student may fall, keeping the poles out can be really helpful. Again, it's a skill that requires practice, but I still believe it's a skill that's worthy and within scope to practice on a course. I think it's totally fine. Keeping them out can really help manage those flats. And you just, I always recommend keeping them really long because if you are in solid mode, you can really just push them behind you and get that much more glide. And then also, it's really helpful getting up in powder to have them out. So if you expect that they're going to fall, one tool that you can teach them is to cross their poles and put their hand in the center of the cross, and that can give just enough flotation for their hand to press into the snow without just going all the way through to the ground. To be able to kind of get themselves back up. So it can add a lot of efficiency to the day, right? You're not just managing the snowboarder, you're managing an entire class of students. So it can add a little bit of more efficiency so they don't have to take their pack off and pull their poles out and then put them back away and then all the things. So if you are expecting flat terrain coming up or you're expecting like a fall could be likely, then go ahead and keep them out. And then another one, skinning considerations. We kind of already talked about this. The soft boots might be, I'm gonna stop sharing real quick. And if you want to see me, you can pin my face so that I'm like full screen. Where are my video settings? How do I get rid of this background? None.
You're
Okay.
full screen for me now. Yeah.
Okay,
Spotlighted for everyone now, Sarah.
Don't look too close. So, right, we've already talked about this. You're fighting against the boot. It is soft, but it's not that soft. You're still fighting against the boot to get ankle range of motion. And so because of that, snowboarders might be find heel risers helpful earlier because it puts their foot in a better position for moving uphill. And then, oh, sorry, I thought I heard somebody say something.
That was me coughing. I'm not on mute.
Oh no, you're good. Okay, back to my slides. And then because we have a harder time because our edges are farther away from the boot, if it is, hard skinning, we may pull out ski crampons earlier. I think both heel risers and ski crampons are pretty unlikely to use on course. I wouldn't use ski crampons unless everybody had them. But just wanted to kind of point out these differences. And then skin track improvement on the whole. That applies to skiers and snowboarders, but it really makes a big difference here, right? And that's like etching a good edge if it is firm skinning, or sweeping fresh powder over the skin track so that the person behind you gets good grip. There's a really great AMGA video about improving the skin track, so we're not going to teach that here, but these skills and yeah, these skills really come into play to support the success of a snowboarder. Um, cool. Downhill skinning, it happens. You're in skin mode, and the skin track goes downhill. Um, Big downhill sections, not really appropriate, or it can be really difficult for snowboarders. So, if you are anticipating a downhill skinning section, right, like front load a smaller piece of terrain first so that they can practice that skill. Often they'll feel more stable if they go ahead and just flip their high back into downhill mode to get that forward lean. Often they'll have a better time if they do have to do that. Just like take a quick sec, flip that into forward lean mode, keeps them out of the back seat, just like you. And then dropping knees, I mean, have them play around with it. I've felt quite stable dropping knees before. Like I said, the key is keep it short and not steep. That is the key, and then not turned. And then you can also zigzag. Like if the piece of terrain goes straight downhill and it's kind of steep and kind of long, then you can always taper that slope angle just by traversing on the downhill, right? If you don't want to get into solid mode. And so then you have to maybe do an uphill kick turn, or just do like an AVA turn to kind of turn around to go back the other direction and repeat until you end up at your point.
Are we all clear on what Sarah means by uphill kick turn in the case of doing zigzags? Yeah, okay, cool. Let's not do downhill kick turns with very level 1 people.
I don't want to do downhill kick turns with certified splitboard guys. And then the one skin scooter, I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about it. Raise your hand if you've done this on skis. Okay. Okay, so the one skin scooter, you have one skin on, and the other ski doesn't have a skin on. This can be helpful for the entire group, no matter your mode of travel, but I've found it a really effective way to manage flats. I'm not going to go into the details because it's unlikely that we're going to teach this on course, but if you do find that you have the space for it, I'll just include a video in the post-event email to y'all about kind of some nuances of how to use the one skin scooter. Like I said, highly recommend it for all modes of travel. It can be really effective. Don't knock it until you try it. And then I'm only saying these are absolutely not appropriate to practice or teach on course, but it's worthy for you to know about so that you can recommend them to your students. I firmly believe that you can't really be a really great splitboarder until you learn how to ski. So I have always recommended that my students take their splitboard in split mode to practice skiing at a resort. And it's more stable if they have their bindings in forward lean mode. And they can play around with locking their heels. Not all bindings accommodate that, so may not be relevant to all. However, it can be a great way to just play around with moving in the terrain. Skating is so different on a snowboard. We've talked about this before. Our edges are farther away from our foot, so it's way harder for us to apply pressure into our edges. And I promise you it's way harder. On my ski exam at Rogers Pass 2 years ago, Howie Schwartz had us on this long, flat, groomed exit. He had the splitboarders, switch skis with the skiers because we all had hard boots. So we were able to tech toe into each other's bindings just so that the skiers could feel how much easier it is or how much more difficult it is to actually skate on split skis. It is an incredibly athletic endeavor. And I highly recommend that you find your hard boot friend and try it yourself because I think it can be really valuable for you to really understand like what your snowboarders are working with. Um, but it's still a skill worthy of practicing. So you may choose to recommend to your students that they practice that. And if they do start on a flat or subtle downhill groomed piece of like road or terrain, get those poles as long as possible. Um, it's kind of like a Nordic skill, that the long poles. And that is way easier if you lock your heels. Um, cool. So I'm just gonna kind of plant this little seed in your brain. We are coming to a close. We just have one more slide for homework, but a little bit of proof that it is possible to rip in split mode.
No, I'm feeling love, made it go. No, never loved her.
Joey of Osborne,
No,
the man, the myth, the legend.
you. It's gotta be love. I said it. You gotta know I'm feeling love. Mm. You gotta know I'm feeling love. You gotta know. You know I'm never lover. You're the one. I'm
Just to get jazzed on ski season. So there is, oops, sorry. There is one more thing that, kind of like pros and cons of snowboarders and snowboards and skis. Like splitboarding isn't an inferior tool. There are pros and cons, right? Like, yeah, it is more difficult to ski with them and all of these things. And it can be a really efficient tool when you practice well. And so my big goal in life is to keep snowboarders snowboarding if that's what they want. You don't have to switch to skiing to be an effective backcountry traveler. It just requires the right awareness and mentorship and knowledge. And breakable crust, snowboarders hardly know her. Like breakable crust, they can apply all of their force into one edge, and it can be a better tool for crusts. So maybe that's the only like better thing about a snowboard. But there's a lot. But anyway, our homework for you.
Get a snowboard out on a powder day and tell me that it's not as fun, or it's that skis are more fun than snowboarding.
Totally. It's worthy to just give it a try. So we recommend that you practice transitioning a snowboard because that'll help you be a better guide and instructor. Bolster your repair kit. Get the scraper and tool in an outside pocket. The fine steel wool, add that to your repair kit and get those screws in your kit. Try skating and split skiing on your hard boot friends setup. And bolster your pre-course email. So expectation setting is super important. And I know it can be difficult for students who can, manage flat terrain on skis to, wait up for the snowboarders if, kind of we haven't managed our group very well. So I really try to like front load the expectation that pace and the objective is never guaranteed. Our goal is safety, one, and to learn, two. But like put what we do is just dependent on the group's abilities. And so you probably are already front loading this in your emails, but expectation setting it goes a long way. And I also like to set the expectation that like pods are moving together, and we'll be kind of transitioning together, move together, and that way, people are like going into it without the expectation that they're going to get rowdy. Ask your snowboarders to get a fresh base wax because there's nothing like a fresh wax that allows them to carry speed through the flats. Ask them to apply Loctite and tighten screws before they arrive. And ask them to practice transitioning so that you don't have to be afraid of that extra transition. That sets the whole team up for more fun as opposed to choosing a flat piece of terrain. What kind of questions we got? What kind of additions we got? What Yeah. Anything in the chat that we didn't cover?
Hey, this is Chris. Thanks, you guys. Wondering, how do you suggest addressing like the releasability? I don't know if there's bindings that do come off, or like the kind of angle I've always taken, like since a lot of ski areas don't let people do control work wearing snowboards, is that skiing maybe safer, in the sense that the skis will release and you won't get pulled into the flow of the snow. And I often like find myself kind of making that point on courses, but um, yeah, what would you say to that?
A great question. And I think we all know that splitboard equipment is behind it's a very young sport. The technology hasn't been growing or developing for as long as skiing. And what I would say is it really is just a risk that you are taking. You do, and there are case studies, right, that we've all read that, the snowboarders can get dragged down. But I'm really curious, like there's a lot of really experienced people on this call. Curious if anybody has any other thoughts on that. It just, yeah, it's a con of the equipment, unfortunately, a downfall.
Well, cool. Thanks for all the info.
Yeah, you know what's interesting is it's not, to directly answer your question regarding safety in the world of if you get caught in an avalanche, but what is really interesting is everybody who skis, their biggest concern about snowboarding is it's terrifying that now you're strapped to one thing. But every snowboarder who thinks about skiing is terrified that now they're not going to be strapped to one thing, right? So like from like just mobility standpoint, I think that is just a perspective for each of each sport.
I'm definitely afraid of my knees when I'm in ski mode, that's for sure. But that's very different than an avalanche. Yeah. Awesome. Really appreciate y'all tuning in tonight. I know we kind of fire hosed a lot of things at you. A lot of it you may have already known, and hopefully you got some tips out of it as well. But yeah, like I said, we're gonna drop some links to some resources to you in a follow-up email. But really appreciate, like, it means a lot to me that you're taking the time to care and be good facilitators for all modes of travel. So yeah, thanks for being so awesome.
May I ask a quick question before you sign off?
Yeah.
Just kind of came to mind. A few years back, a split boarder on an Avi course had a cord that he somehow attached to both of his bindings that he was able to just pull it, and it immediately released both of his feet out of the board. But
Mm.
I don't remember anything more than that, any specifics on it. Is that something that rings a bell with anybody here? And is that still a thing?
Yeah, thanks for saying that. I forgot about that, but yeah, you're welcome to make my face larger if you want. But yeah, I have heard of people doing that. I personally haven't tried it myself, but um, yeah, like you can attach just a cord to the underside here in a way, or maybe the up, yeah, to just these pieces here in a way where if you were to just reach down, it would pull both of them at once and release the bindings. Um, so yeah, I think that that could definitely work. Like I said, I've not tried it. I don't feel experienced enough to really recommend it or not. Um, but I think that that could be, unfortunately, a janky solution.
Thanks.
Yeah. Thanks for bringing that up. I forgot about that. Um,
Awesome.
yeah, Kurt, thanks for saying that. Lower skin track angle for sure. Just avoid the heel risers altogether, if possible.
That's between that and, you know, one thing I have found, you made a comment earlier in the presentation about just preloading information and setting up expectations correctly. And, early on teaching avalanche courses, I've run into a lot of people, and we were discussing this in the last webinar, actually last week, about people showing up, not being comfortable and familiar with their gear. And I've really tried to make a point with people, if you have brand new split board gear or brand new any gear, if you're not really comfortable with it, it's maybe better just to come on the course with snowshoes. So you're
Mhm.
not spending your time dinking with your gear when the real point of the avalanche course is to learn about avalanches and avoiding avalanches. And I've just seen many people, and I don't want to single out split boarders, but they are certainly people you have to dink a lot with your gear and get to learn it. And some of the things Devin was talking about icing up and how the boards fit together efficiently or don't fit together and the bindings, etc. If you're not familiar with all that stuff ahead of time and practiced it a little bit, it's going to take away some of your energy that could be spent learning about what you're there to learn. Well, for what it's
Yeah.
worth.
I think that there are a lot of things that occupy bandwidth on a course, right? Like temperature, keeping up with the group, and equipment is a big one. And I think I just try to let the student make their own decision, but like front loading that in an email for sure. Just being like, like when you're faffing with your equipment, your brain isn't as available to take in the really dense course content. So like just know this. We recommend you practice, and in the end it is up to you if you do or not, but you just may not get as much out of the course, right?
I remember when I took an AST one up in Canada like 10 years ago. And even then, like, I don't feel like anybody on my course and talking to the instructor, anybody would come without quite a bit of experience in the resort, right? Having that base level skill set. Um, so it's not just familiarity with gear, it's the skills too.
Mm-hmm.
But like as resorts gotten more and more expensive, like there are more. I work in the ski shop also, and I'm seeing more and more people who are just like, I can't afford to learn to ski in a resort. Also, if even if I can, when am I going to log enough powder days to learn how to ski soft snow in a resort before I just gotta go get out
Mm-hmm.
there and get it in the backcountry. So I think I'm now it's not even like a do you have enough skills? It's like I don't have the skills and I don't know my equipment, but this is the only way to access the sport. And as instructors, I think we all wish that people come in with requisite movement skills and familiar with gear. But I think you're all here spending this time um, listening to us yammer because you know that as instructors, though, you still gotta be prepared for what is a growing, population amongst our student groups, right? Like, I don't think that it's gonna go away. That we're gonna see uh, less and less newbies coming into area level ones.
Yeah, and being a beginner is difficult no matter what. And I do tell my friends too who choose to splitboard as a beginner, like just kind of front loading that expectation, like, hey, it's gonna be hard. You kind of do have to take a little bit of the beat down, but in the end, it's worth it. You will get through it. But yeah, if you're experiencing difficulty right now, it's because it's difficult. And yeah, like we can only do so much to open bandwidth to absorb course content. But yeah, I think I agree, Devin. Like at some point, you do just kind of have to like throw yourself into it. And just rip off the band-aid. And yeah, it's going to be hard. Like being a beginner in anything is difficult. But
Bail sucks.
so we cut the recording off before that, maybe. Awesome. I love it so much. Well, thank you all so much for joining.
Yeah, thank you all so much. It really means a lot to see you all here learning about something you don't know. I love that this is part of the AIARE mindset is this journey of being a lifelong learner. And I learned a lot tonight. I have to admit, I knew woefully little about how split boards work. They've always seemed so mysterious and gear heavy to me. And so I really enjoyed the opportunity to learn from the two of you. And I think it's really cool that you all showed up to learn how you can create a better and more productive learning environment for your students. So thank you for being part of this. And Sarah and Devin, thank you so much. This was really awesome. It is really tough to make a Zoom webinar and really engaging, and you both did an awesome job with that. So thank you. It's almost like you're professional educators or something. This was great. So really appreciate everybody showing up. We'll get the recording up in the next couple days, and we look forward to a really awesome season ahead and hope you all are having a great start to your winters as well. So stay in touch.
Have a safe season, everyone.
Thanks, y'all. Bye.
Thank you.
You.